Hey my friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. We're back with the 2017 Kia Sportage. Earlier this year, I went to the media launch and did a really brief short video with driving impressions from my first time, but now I've had the entire week to spend with it and learn what it's really like to live with. That's what's coming up. Now before we get out on the road, we've got to talk about the styling a little bit because it's all new for this year and it's very handsome looking, I think. So handsome, in fact, it almost has a little bit of a Porsche Macan thing going on here, doesn't it? You can see it in the eyes, the face, but it is original. I have to give it that. Here we've got the Kia Dogbone grille. Now this is a front-wheel drive model, so it does have a different fascia than the all-wheel drive, and that can be seen down here below the grille. This has an extra air inlet there that I do think looks like a little bit of an afterthought. It almost looks like maybe they had to put it in after they designed the car, but if you get the all-wheel drive model, it doesn't have that extra air inlet. Over here, the headlights on this one, these are HID with light bending technology, as they call it. Also LED driving lights. Down below you've got LED ice cube fog lights. That's what they call those, ice cubes. That's what they look like. Now if you get the lower trim grades down there, you're going to have a black blank plate, still pretty tasteful looking. And as this is the top line SX, here we've got 19-inch alloy wheels. If you get the lower trim grades, you still have alloys, just smaller sizes. As we come down the side here, one thing I want to point out is a little detail here, the way the hood line starts right here at the headlight and dives back here into the window opening. Just a nice little detail, I think. Now these mirrors, they're power folding mirrors, so when you lock the vehicle, they fold in, which protects them, but also it's a great way to look back and see if you locked your vehicle when you're walking away from it in a parking lot. I like that. Also, I like the way this window line just kind of wraps back here in a nice formal sedan-like way, yet it's somewhat avant-garde. And that roof line as you come around here, I think wraps into a pretty darn handsome three-quarter view. And a lot of that's really set off by these LED taillights that are tied together with a nice red strip and a chrome strip in the middle. You've got a built-in spoiler up on top, which is standard. And down below on this model, you've got dual exhaust. And those are real exhaust pipes, not just a trim piece with an exhaust pipe sticking out through the middle. They're the real deal. The interior of this vehicle is all new for this year, and they've got a completely new, more of a horizontal design layout, and it's very much in keeping with a lot of the other Kias that have been redesigned in the last year or so. And what that really comes to is sort of a more German design. And so inside what that translates to is switchgear here on the center stack that's very tactile. It's a very high quality, good feeling switchgear. It's very simple, it's down to business, it's very well laid out. Everything's right where you'd expect it. This particular interior has virtually everything you can get in this class. I've got heated and cooled seats up front, I've got a heated steering wheel, I have a panoramic sunroof up here, which is part of this SX trim grade. These seats here are very comfortable. I was able to get my perfect seating position pretty easily, along with the steering wheel, which has a tilt and telescope adjustment, but it's not power, it is manual. One thing I will point out here in the full trim grade is the fact that I don't have memory seats. Not a big deal. Not everybody offers it, but some do. Now the driving position here is very much like a sedan. You do sit up a little bit higher where you have that SUV feel, but how you relate to the dash and the windshield is much more like a four-door sedan. Headroom is actually pretty good as well, even with the panoramic sunroof, which lowers the headroom by 2 inches. I've got no problem at all, and I'm about 5'8", 5'9". And it really does open this interior up. It makes it so much more light and airy, and it goes all the way back, and the big front section here opens, and that opening section almost extends all the way into the back seat. So that's pretty good. Some panel roofs, they don't open at all, or the opening section's pretty small. The back seat's actually pretty comfortable for me back here, as you can see. These seats here about halfway forward, halfway back, and I've got plenty of legroom. Headroom's very good, even with the 2 inches less we get with the panoramic sunroof here. There are a few features back here I always like to point out. I've got vents back here. Also, there are reclining seat backs. Now, they are the only adjustment that you get. You don't have a sliding lower cushion here, but not a big deal. And this lower cushion, the height of it's okay with me. It's not as high as I'd like it, but it's not low like some in class. And part of what makes that work here is this seat actually has a little bit of a dish to it, which for your outboard passengers is going to be great, but the center passenger here might complain that they're sitting up here just a little bit. You do have a fold down armrest with cup holders in it. And when you get out back, there's a deck back there that's it's got a pretty interesting feature. It's actually adjustable. You can have it down low or you can have it up a little bit higher. And if you fold these seats down in this 60/40 split, you really see why it's nice to have that adjustment, because if you have it up high, you get a nearly flat load floor. But the rest of the time, if you don't need to worry about it being perfectly flat, you can lower that and get more space. Underneath that load floor, you've got plenty of storage area under there for other things you can hide away around that spare tire. And one thing I need to point out is that spare tire is not something that all of these have. It's on our tester here, but some of the trim grades with some of the options actually come with an emergency inflator instead of that spare tire. So if you're shopping the different trim grades here, I highly suggest you check that part out when you're comparing one model to the next. On the matter of interior design, I'm pretty happy with what they've done here. It's well laid out, it's pleasing to the eye, the materials have a high quality look and finish, and as I said, the switchgear very good. One thing I will point out, for my own money, the black interior here, because there aren't any contrasting things like big slabs of aluminum or wood, I'd probably go with one of the lighter colors that they offer, like the tan or the brown. They even have gray in here, but it's just well done. I give this interior 5 stars. Very nice backup camera in this thing, I gotta say. That is one of the best. It turns with you, which is always cool because it lets you see what you're doing. The infotainment system here is Kia's top-of-the-line unit, touchscreen, every manner of audio source, plus navigation. It's got everything in here along with the backup camera. Harman Kardon back-end audio, which sounds absolutely great. But the best part about using this system is how well the touchscreen menus are laid out, how simple it is, how intuitive it is, and how well it reacts to your touch. I'm just very impressed with it. It has excellent connectivity options, including Apple CarPlay as well as Android Auto. I don't have a single bad thing to say about this system. Kia's just really concentrated on this and really has one of the best systems in the business. I give it 5 full stars. Under the hood here of our SX is a 2-liter turbocharged gasoline 4-cylinder engine. It has direct fuel injection with 240 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque, and it's mated exclusively to a 6-speed automatic transmission. Now the horsepower level is specific to the front-wheel drive model. It's slightly less with all-wheel drive. How does it go? Nice sound. Now, what I'll point out is, while this thing isn't blindingly fast because it's a pretty heavy vehicle, this engine is so refined, it's got a nice fat mid-range to it, at least that's how it feels. It's pleasant to drive around town. There is a slight bit of turbo lag, but not so much that you just feel it and you notice it and you think turbo lag. It just doesn't come to your mind. It's just got a nice V6-like power band, and the 6-speed automatic transmission does a great job of working with it. It's always seemingly right in the right gear. Now, you can also put it in sport mode or eco mode. I have it in sport mode right now, and that is basically what gave us that nice quick rush back there. And that also enables you to really take advantage of these paddle shifters, which are pretty snappy, right on the money. When it comes to fuel economy, this is rated at 23 mpg combined, and that's exactly what I got with it during my week of driving, both city and highway. And it's always a good thing when you can get what's promised. So here you've got a little bit of extra power, you've got good fuel economy, and well, I'm happy with that. So I give the powertrain 5 of 5 stars. Driving around my neighborhood here on the city streets, a few curves here and there, as well as on the highway this week, one of the big things I've really taken away from this drive is the fact that Kia has gotten very good at creating that German feel to their cars, and that sounds like high praise, and it is, because the steering on this has a nice precise feel. The chassis doesn't really get upset very easily when you put it into a curve, when you go over bumps. It just has that sort of thick-headed sort of German feel. That's, for lack of a better way of putting it. It's quiet on the road, even with this roof up here. Not a lot of wind noise coming from that. But when it comes to how the chassis, the bushings, the shocks, the steering, how everything feels like it's working together, I'm very impressed with this thing. It has a nice way of responding over bumps, and when you put it into a curve, it reacts pretty sharply. You get exactly what you'd expect. You don't get any nasty surprises when you go into a curve a little bit too quickly. So I'm pretty impressed here on the pavement, and that leads us to the next most important measure of any crossover, how it drives off the pavement. This would not be a complete test-driven TV review of a crossover or SUV without bringing it out here to the desert washboard road. And that's because this washboard surface is a great way to see how well sorted the chassis is, how well it adapts from pavement life to out here in the rough. And what I'm finding out so far is that some of the goodness that this has on the pavement does translate out here, the handling, the roll stiffness, how well tuned it is, but because it really does handle so well on the pavement, it is a little bit rough and harsh out here over some of the rougher bumps. And that's compounded by the fact that we've got 19-inch wheels and low-profile tires. They really let a lot of the roughness in here. And on some of these rougher bumps, what I found is that this doesn't have a great deal of suspension travel. So if you hit a bump hard enough and fast enough, it will cause the suspension to bottom out, which sends crashes through the cabin. The other thing is with this panoramic roof on the SX here, I do get a lot of rattling and creaking over some of the rougher bumps from that headliner. So I guess the takeaway here is if you had a lower trim grade with taller tires, smaller wheels, it would probably be better suited for the off-road areas, as well as the fact that it wouldn't have that panoramic roof. But overall, when I look at the big picture here, whew, that was kind of rough there. When I look at the big picture here with on the pavement and off the pavement performance, ouch, did you hear that? We're at 4 out of 5 stars. If you really go off-road a lot, you really just need to go for the lower trim grades. That's just how it is. When it comes to quality, I have to say I'm pretty impressed. This is built in Korea, and Kia, you know, they've really just come a long way in the last decade when it comes to how good their vehicles feel. They're no longer that sort of cheap bargain basement feel. Now this has great paint quality, body finish and alignment, excellent. You've got good materials on the interior. The only fault I can really put on this vehicle is that the doors still sound a little bit hollow when you slam them. And when we were on the washboard road, that headliner really makes a lot of noise around that big panoramic window. So quality comes in at 4 out of 5 stars. On the matter of safety, this is one of the few vehicles in its class that's an IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus, and that's because it has good ratings in their entire battery of crash tests, plus it has a superior level crash avoidance system available as an option. All right, my friends, wrapping it up for the 2017 Kia Sportage. I like it. I like it a lot. In fact, it goes on my I'd buy it list for 2016. And that basically means that if I were buying a vehicle in this class, I'd totally buy it. I love the styling. It's got a nice premium look and feel, and that feel translates to the driving experience. Sitting behind the wheel, it just feels a few steps up from its price class. And the price? $33,000 and some change. We're fully loaded here, front wheel drive. You could spend a little bit more if you get all wheel drive or a couple little tiny things, but I think this really offers a good value at this price because it has some features that some of its competitors don't even offer at any price. So value here, I think, is 5 stars. When you put that in with everything else we've already talked about, we're at 4.5 stars for the review. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. Well, friends, if you liked the test drive you just saw, I highly suggest that you click the link right here on your screen and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We test drive 1 to 2 vehicles a week, plus we have a new video almost every other day. There's always something new, so stay tuned.